Hi, my name is Colby, and for my second lab project, I got to design and program a CIP system. Now you may ask, what is a CIP system? CIP stands for Clean in Place and is an automated method of quickly and thoroughly cleaning the insides of pipes, tanks, and more. CIP systems have an important role in processing because of the need of keeping process components clean and sanitary. Without the use of a CIP system, one would have to manually disassemble the process to clean it. The CIP system I designed consists of 3 chemical tanks: a rinse tank that runs between each cycle, a caustic tank that contains caustic chemicals to soften fat, and an acid tank that contains an acid chemical to dissolve and remove inorganic residues and bacteria. To simulate the 3 chemical tank pumps, I used 3 Toshiba VFDs. To wire the VFDs to the Modicon M340 PLC, wire VI, which is also your speed reference, to your analog output card with ICC as your DC com. Next, wire AM, which is your feedback, to your analog input card with CC as your DC com. To make the drive run forward and stop, you must at least wire standby and forward to your discrete output card. Another thing that needs to be changed is the J100 jumper that needs to be in the 1 and 2 position to make sure that it is a sync device. Another thing to mention is VFD 1 and 2 use all inputs and outputs except for set point 1, and VFD 3 uses all inputs and outputs except for VI, which is the speed reference. And this is simply because I did not have enough analog output terminals for another speed reference. So instead, VFD 3 has set point 1, which is also wired to the discrete output card and is programmed to run at 30 Hz. The first routine of my program is in charge of my system startup. Next is my rinse tank routine, which is in charge of the rinse cycle. Next is the caustic tank, which is in charge of the caustic cycle. After the caustic tank is the acid tank, which is in charge of the acid cycle. And lastly is the HMI product move. This routine is in charge of moving the product pumps, product levels, and product timers to one tag solely for the HMI. To start the CIP process, select CIP Start to start the system startup. Once you're ready for the first cycle, select Full Cleaning. The first cycle will be your rinse cycle, and the rinse pump will turn on for 20 seconds. And as you can see, as the pump is running, the rinse tank will start to empty while the product tank fills. And you can also see that the rinse motor is running at about 30 Hertz. Once the product tank is full, the product mixer will mix for 10 seconds. And once the mixer is done, the product pump will turn on for 20 seconds as well. As it's running, the rinse pH sensor will read the pH level until it reads a level of 7. Once it reads 7, it'll open the top valve of the rinse tank to let the chemicals return to its tank. Once the rinse tank is full, the process will end in a rinse purge to get rid of any remaining chemicals inside the pipes. The next cycle will be your caustic cycle. Again, your caustic pump will turn on for 20 seconds. The caustic tank slowly emptying while the product tank fills. And you can see that the caustic motor is also running at about 30 Hertz. The product mixer will mix again for about 10 seconds. When finished mixing, the product pump will turn on again for 20 seconds. As the product pump is running, the caustic pH sensor will read the pH level until it reads a level of 10. Once it reads a level of 10, that will open the top caustic valve, allowing the chemicals to return to its tank. This process will also end in a caustic purge to get rid of any remaining caustic chemical in the pipe. Next, the process will return to a rinse cycle. The rinse pump again running at 20 seconds and at 20 Hertz. Once the product tank is full, the product mixer will mix again for another 10 seconds. Once the mixer has completed mixing, the product pump will turn on for 20 seconds as well. And again, the rinse pH sensor will read the pH level until it reads 7, which will open the top valve of the rinse tank, allowing the chemicals to return to its tank. The cycle again will end in a rinse purge. After the rinse purge, the acid cycle will start. The acid pump will, as well as the other cycles, will run at 20 seconds, and the acid motor runs at 30 Hertz. And as you can see, all three motors will be running at pretty close to the same to ensure that the flow is at the same speed. Once the product tank is full, it'll mix again for 10 seconds. And the product pump will start running for 20 seconds again. As it's running, the acid pH sensor will read the pH level until it reads a level of 4. Once it reads 4, it'll open the top valve of the acid tank to allow the acid chemicals to return to its tank. This cycle will also end in the acid purge. Once the purge is complete, it'll go to its last cycle, returning to the rinse cycle once again. The rinse pump will run at 20 seconds again, emptying the rinse tank and filling the product tank. Once the product tank is full, the product mixer will mix for another 10 seconds. Once it's finished mixing, the product pump will turn on for another 20 seconds. And once it reads 7 for the rinse pH level, it'll open the top valve for the rinse tank, allowing the chemicals to return to its tank. And to end the whole CIP cycle, it'll end in a rinse purge again to get any remaining chemicals out of the pipes. And once the rinse purge has ended, you'll know that the process is complete when the light turns on. And then if you want to repeat the process, you can do that by selecting the repeat process button, which will allow you to select the full cleaning button again to start the CIP process over again. And in case of an emergency, or if you need to stop the process, you can do that by selecting CIP stop. So overall, as you can see, this whole process is pretty simple and very redundant, but it's also very important that it operates this way to keep the product tank and the pipes clean and sanitary. Thank you for watching.